Well, I mean, we should remember that before Kursk went down, the Russians have been carrying out their offensive operations in the Donbass and Zaporizhia, and to a lesser extent in Kherson. Kherson is primarily a holding action. The Russians have been on the offensive, and it's an offensive that is premised on the notion of attrition warfare. And the goal is to wear down the Ukrainians to the point of total collapse. And the Russians have pretty much achieved this. The Ukrainians are in a desperate situation right now. The Russians are making, critical gains on a daily basis. 5 kilometers here, 6 kilometers there, 10 kilometers there. Some places, 500 meters, and some places 100 meters. But they're advancing all along the line of contact. And the Ukrainians don't have any reserves to plug the hole. So as they fall back, it's not like they're falling back on a prepared position with fresh troops. The exhausted troops have just had to leave an untenable position or falling back to an equally untenable position. And the next day, the Russians are going to push them back and keep pushing them back until all the Ukrainians are killed or surrendered or captured. There's nothing left.
Welcome back, dear viewers. As Mr. Scott Ritter has consistently pointed out, the tide of war is turning, and it's turning decisively in favor of Russia. While the Western media bombards its audiences with delusions of Ukrainian victories, the reality on the ground is starkly different. Russia is not just advancing, it's strategically dismantling Ukraine's defenses in Kharkiv. Today we bring you the unvarnished truth as Scott Ritter dissects the Russian offensive with surgical precision. From tactical maneuvers to the broader implications, this is the narrative the West desperately wants to hide. Brace yourselves, because the reality we reveal here is as brutal as it is exhilarating for those who support Russia's just cause. Inspector Scott Ritter's analysis shines a spotlight on the situation at Kharkiv, where Russian forces executed a meticulously planned assault that left Ukrainian forces reeling. Imagine this: while Ukrainian propagandists were busy painting rosy pictures of resilience, Russian troops were methodically advancing from both the north and south of the lake, securing every inch of land with the precision of a master chess player. The operation was no mere skirmish, it was a decisive move to cut off Ukrainian supply lines and tighten the noose around their beleaguered troops. The Ukrainian defenders were outmaneuvered, outgunned, and utterly overwhelmed. Russia's dual front assault didn't just win territory, it shattered Ukrainian morale and exposed the weakness of their defensive strategies. The significance of this victory at Kharkiv cannot be overstated. It's a clear message to Kiev: Russia is in control, and there's little Ukraine can do to stop it. And if this sounds like a masterclass in military strategy, just wait until we uncover the Russian breakthrough in Lukyansk. In Lukyansk, the Russian advance was nothing short of spectacular. Inspector Scott Ritter has long emphasized the importance of decisive breakthroughs, and this was a textbook example. Russian forces surged forward, breaking through Ukrainian defenses as if they were paper tigers. The scale of this advance is jaw-dropping: 3 kilometers in one fell swoop, driving a wedge between Ukrainian forces and leaving their lines in tatters. This isn't just a tactical win, it's a strategic earthquake that has sent shockwaves all the way to Kiev. Why is this so significant? Because Lipsy, a crucial entry point into Kharkiv, is now within Russia's grasp. The fall of Lipsy would open the gates to Kharkiv, effectively cutting off Ukrainian reinforcements and leaving the city vulnerable to a full-scale assault. The panic in Ukrainian command centers is palpable as they scramble to respond to this devastating blow. The Western narrative that Ukraine could hold the line is crumbling as fast as their defenses in Lukyansk. This is more than a victory, it's a pivotal moment in the conflict that highlights the unstoppable momentum of the Russian offensive. And as Russian forces consolidate their gains in Lukyansk, the broader implications for Kharkiv become increasingly ominous. Kharkiv, once a bustling symbol of Ukrainian defiance, is now staring down the barrel of Russian artillery. The city's fate hangs in the balance as Russian forces, having secured key positions in the surrounding areas, prepare for the final push. Let's not mince words: Kharkiv is the prize, and Russia is on the verge of claiming it. The surrounding towns of Zelin, Neskuchny, and Vysel, once touted as strongholds of Ukrainian resistance, are now little more than footnotes in the grander narrative of Russian dominance. Ukraine's Western-backed forces are struggling to hold on, but the reality is that their grip on Kharkiv is slipping with every passing day. The myth of Ukrainian invincibility is being shattered in real time, and what's left is a stark picture of impending defeat. Russian forces are poised to turn Kharkiv into a fortress under their control, And once that happens, the Ukrainian dream of reclaiming the city will be nothing more than a distant memory. The Western media may continue to spin their tales, but here on the ground, the truth is undeniable. Kharkiv is the next domino to fall in Russia's inexorable advance. And as Kharkiv teeters on the brink, let's shift our focus to the disastrous situation Ukraine faces in Kursk. As Scott Ritter has astutely observed, the situation in Kursk reveals the desperation and the futility of Ukraine's strategies. Ukrainian forces, prodded by their Western handlers, launched a series of reckless attacks in an attempt to gain a foothold in Russian territory. But what did they encounter? A wall of Russian steel and resolve. Every Ukrainian advance was met with a calculated, devastating counterstrike that left their forces decimated. The once ambitious Ukrainian offensive in Kursk has turned into a nightmare scenario, with Russian troops systematically dismantling their efforts. The truth is, Ukraine's gambit in Kursk was doomed from the start, a desperate, ill-conceived plan that has only served to further weaken their already overstretched military. And as Ukraine falters, Russia's position grows stronger, more unassailable with each passing day. The Western narrative of a valiant Ukrainian comeback is nothing more than a fantasy. The reality is clear: Ukraine is losing, and losing badly. But the story doesn't end with military failures. Ukraine's attempts at humanitarian propaganda only add to the absurdity of their situation. As the battlefield realities become harder to ignore, Ukraine has resorted to what it does best: propaganda. In Sudzha, we see the latest iteration of their cynical tactics, parading images of aid distribution while the very areas they claim to help lie in ruins, thanks to their own mismanagement and failure. But make no mistake, these PR stunts are designed to distract from the harsh truth: Ukraine is losing the war, and no amount of stage photo ops can change that. Western media might lap it up, but the people on the ground see through the charade. The Ukrainian forces, under the pretense of humanitarian aid, are in fact trying to cover up the sheer scale of their failures. Their so-called aid is nothing more than a desperate attempt to maintain some semblance of control as their military strategy crumbles. The truth is, this isn't about helping people, it's about salvaging what little is left of Ukraine's rapidly deteriorating reputation. Meanwhile, Russia continues its methodical advance, unfazed by these distractions. The reality on the ground is that Ukraine's efforts are faltering, and no amount of Western spin can change the facts. And speaking of faltering, the situation in Sudzha is a prime example of how Ukraine's plans are unraveling in real time. Inspector Scott Ritter's insights are particularly relevant as we examine the battle for Sudzha, a microcosm of Ukraine's broader failures. What was once hailed as a stronghold of resistance has now become a theater of relentless Russian pressure. Despite their bluster, Ukrainian forces are finding it nearly impossible to dislodge Russian troops from their fortified positions. Every inch of ground is being contested, but the tide is unmistakably turning in Russia's favor. Ukrainian forces, who once boasted of their early gains, are now being pushed back as Russian artillery and ground forces pound their positions with unrelenting force. The strategic importance of Sudzha cannot be overstated. It is a linchpin in the broader conflict, and as Ukraine's grip weakens, the prospects for their continued presence in the region grow dimmer by the hour. The fact is, Ukraine's much touted last stand in Sudzha is shaping up to be just another in a long line of defeats. The writing is on the wall, and the outcome seems inevitable: Sudzha will fall, and with it, Ukraine's hopes of reversing the tide of this war. The question now is not whether Ukraine can hold on, but how much longer they can delay the inevitable. But even as Ukraine faces this grim reality in Sudzha, the situation in Rilsk continues to expose the weaknesses in their strategy. In Rilsk, as Scott Ritter has noted, we see yet another example of Ukraine's strategic failures. Despite throwing everything they have at this front, Ukrainian forces have been unable to make significant headway against Russian defenses. The situation here is a testament to Russia's superior planning and execution. Supply lines are secure, defenses are strong, and any attempts by Ukraine to disrupt this have been met with swift and decisive counterattacks. The reality is that Ukraine simply cannot afford this kind of stalemate. Every day that passes without a Ukrainian victory in Rilsk is a day that strengthens Russia's position and weakens Ukraine's resolve. The Western media may not admit it, but Rilsk is slipping through Ukraine's fingers, and with it, the slim hope of reversing their fortunes in this conflict. What was meant to be a bold push has turned into a grinding war of attrition, one that Ukraine cannot sustain in the long term. The truth is, Rilsk is becoming yet another symbol of Ukraine's faltering campaign, a campaign that is slowly but surely unraveling as Russian forces continue their steady advance. As we draw our analysis to a close, it's clear that the broader implications of these developments are far-reaching and undeniable. As Inspector Scott Ritter has consistently pointed out, the situation across Kharkiv, Kursk, Sudzha, and Rilsk paints a clear and unmistakable picture Russia is winning and Ukraine is losing badly. The narratives spun by Western media are crumbling as quickly as Ukrainian defenses, revealing a truth that is as unpalatable to the West as it is exhilarating for those who support Russia's righteous cause. Scott Ritter's analysis leaves no room for doubt the Russian military is systematically dismantling Ukraine's forces, and with every day that passes, the inevitability of a Russian victory becomes clearer. This war is not just about territory, it's about the future of an entire region, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As Russian forces continue their unstoppable advance, one thing is certain: Ukraine's dreams of victory are fading, and the reality of Russian dominance is here to stay. Stay tuned as we continue to bring you the unfiltered truth about this conflict with more in-depth analysis and hard-hitting reporting to come.